Hi, my name is Anthony Spontella, and this is my AP Government Final Project for the 2025-26 school year. So, the first question here was, has the role of the presidency expanded past the framers' original intent? So, this here is an emphatic yes. So, the president now has more military, economic, and administrative power than ever before. So, in the military sense, he's able to do a lot more things than before. Originally, in Article 2, the president only has certain enumerated powers. So he has the power to declare war, but only with Senate approval. And he also has the power, not quite military related, but to appoint judges and things to courts like that, but not nearly what he has today. So what led to this was certain times in our history where the president was able to do these things, which then gives precedent to do more things in the future. So one of these examples was the suspension of habeas corpus during the Civil War. And this is when Abraham Lincoln decided to suspend this practice, which is basically everyone needs a trial before going to court, or everyone needs to go to court before going to jail, And when he suspended this, it sets the precedent for the future that the president has a lot more executive powers, especially in wartime, than the Constitution originally implies. So he did this here so that people in the Civil War that were starting uprisings and rebellions were able to be put in jail right away without lengthy court processes. So it's understandable to us, but for the long term, we could see that it caused a lot more different values than what the framers intended. And then FDR expanded these executive agencies to the New Deal programs. So now we have a bunch of different federal programs here. We have Social Security, which is allocating taxpayers' money to other taxpayers, which isn't something the framers necessarily intended, but Social Security, we could see as a society today, is pretty beneficial for just about everyone that wants to hit a certain age. And then we also see military-wise, Obama and Trump, throughout their terms, they both did a lot of military powers that weren't approved by Congress. So Obama would send drone strikes to the Middle East, and Trump also sent planes to the Middle East. A bunch of different things that originally you had to get approved to Congress, but presidents in the past have set precedent for them to just go on and do this. So the second question is, what branch of government is most responsible for expanding civil rights? So in my opinion, this would be the judicial branch. This is largely because of Marbury v. Madison, which established judicial review. So judicial review is the power to interpret the Constitution and interpret laws and say, yep, this is what they mean, this is how they are going to be enacted, and this is how they fit with the Constitution, and that's the final ruling on that. So they've used this to broaden the scope of civil rights tremendously. So Brown v. the Board of Education, they use the Equal Protection, Equal Rights Act to say, no, you can't have separate but equal schools. That's not a thing. Separate but equal is a false trope, and the black kids that are separated from the white kids are not receiving equal treatment. So they said, according to the Equal Rights Act, unfair, not equal rights. They struck that down. So this had a huge precedent for that. And then in Miranda v. Arizona, we see that we've used due process to solidify the rights of those that are accused of a crime. So now, every time someone gets arrested, not that anyone should be getting arrested often, they get their Miranda rights read to them. So that's basically, these are the rights that you have when you're arrested, and they make sure that you're all set to go and they're not violating your constitutional freedoms in any way. And then in Obergefell v. Hodges, they use both Equal Protections Act and Due Process Clause to legalize gay marriage here and say that, no, it's unfair to say that some people can get married while some people can't. You're violating certain minority groups' rights. And so for that reason, they are allowed to get married now, which is using judicial review to say that these practices were unfair. This is not what the Constitution says. Here's what it actually means. And then finally, it's how does a biblical worldview and civic education inform my beliefs about the structure and function of our government? So it really tells me a lot about how I should live as a person. So the Bible teaches us to protect the rights of all people, promote justice, and civic education also reinforces these beliefs and encourages us to be responsible citizens. So the structure and the function of our government we could see through the Bill of Rights, where we are given specifically freedoms, inalienable liberties. We have freedom of speech, press, assembly, religion. Like, these are all extremely important to anyone, and we get this because our government is structured in a way that's by the people, for the people. And then we also see this in the Bible through passages like Romans 13, which talks a lot about submitting to your government and submitting to the authorities that are above you, because these authorities are placed by God. And if it's ordained by God, then we as Christians are meant to follow this. And then in Genesis 1:27, this ties a lot into the social civil rights that I talked about in the last slide. Genesis 1:27, we're all made in God's image. We are all humans, and we all have God's image implanted upon us. It would be completely unfair to say someone is not worthy of the same respect that we are just because of the color of their skin, because of their sexuality. We're all made in God's image, and we all need to be treated as such with the same amount of respect as anyone else. So biblically, I'm impacted a lot in the terms of how I believe our government should function, how I believe society should function. And I do believe that over time, with the judicial system using their judicial review to go back and fix some of the past mistakes that our country has made, and we've made a fair amount, it's done a great deal of progress towards our country in getting a lot better as a nation. And this is my works cited page. And that's all. Thank you.